Over the last few weeks, maybe actually about a month or so now, there has been this very odd story that has been circulating the internet, and it has perplexed a lot of people. For those of you that haven't heard, over off the coast of Spain, there is this pod of orcas that has decided to take it upon themselves to just begin taking out ships. But not all ships, only vessels of a certain size. And it doesn't look like they're trying to harm anyone. They're simply trying to disable the vessels. You'd have to ask yourself, why would they do this? I think I have an explanation. It looks like a government, probably the Chinese or the Russians, has taken a page out of the U.S. CIA playbook from back in the 1960s. Some of you might have heard that way back then, the CIA thought about using dolphins to do different military activities and exercises. Well, what do we know about killer whales, orcas? They're just very large, toothy dolphins, incredibly intelligent, and they can be trained. Now, who remembers the premise of the movie Smokey and the Bandit? You'd have to be pretty old to have watched this in the theaters. A lot of people have heard of it, but they don't understand what the premise of the movie is. The guy driving the Trans Am is trying to coordinate with the guy in the truck behind him to move an illegal load of liquor cross country. So he drives out ahead and he runs through all the speed traps and he gets all the cops distracted so that the semi can go by unnoticed, keeping them busy. That's exactly what either China or Russia is doing with these dolphins. What they're in right now is the proof of concept phase. They're doing it off the coast of Spain near the Straits of Gibraltar. Somebody either wants to get something in through the Straits of Gibraltar unnoticed or out. My odds are it's about 50-50. They're probably wanting to get something through to unnoticed underwater to Israel or to the east coast of the United States. That's what's going on. Now, let me make my case for this. Real quick, thank you to everyone who has signed up over at Patreon. I want to be diligent every single day and say thank you. It's only $1 per month over there. Even less if you sign up for an entire year. There's a $5 level as well for those of you who want to do that. It's not required. Fully refundable first 90 days. No questions asked. God bless all of you that are over there. I very, very much appreciate it. I really need it these days, especially with the censors. We are getting absolutely killed here at YouTube. Now, not to waste a lot of your time, there are 10 different kinds of killer whales. A lot of people, I didn't even realize this until I did the research. There are 5 different kinds in the southern hemisphere. They're primarily around Antarctica. And there are 5 different kinds in the northern hemisphere. These particular killer whales that are doing this are type 2 eastern North Atlantic. They're the largest of the ones in the north hemisphere, and they are very specific to a certain region. What they are trying to do is train these killer whales to take out Coast Guard vessels. If not directly, take out civilian vessels on the East Coast. They're going to pick a target, take out a bunch of vessels. The Coast Guard will have to respond, and that will leave open the door for some vessel to get through and do something or deliver a payload. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are like, wait a minute. That seems like a stretch. They work in very large groups. Orcas, in fact, this particular group over in Spain right now is working in a group of 15. Can you imagine if they even went off into groups of 2, they could take out 7 different vessels, say, off the coast of Charleston, Newport News, where all the aircraft carriers are, Washington, New York. And then all of a sudden, all these Coast Guard vessels get dispatched to go deal with all of these vessels that are taken out. And they're busy. They're distracted. Just like in the movie Smokey and the Bandit. And then a payload, in this particular case, it was just alcohol, but any payload could have gotten through. And a payload gets through that could be devastating. This is 13 February this year. U.S. allies need to operate in the high north more to deter China, Russia, experts say. They've been talking about this, and it wasn't very long ago that a Russian attack sub got within 200 miles of Kings Bay. It was actually one of the most frightening events that's ever happened in my lifetime. That's how close they can get. But they need to get closer than 200 miles. They need to distract the Coast Guard. All those little ships, they need to just create a little bit of an opening somewhere. Maybe even Jacksonville, who knows? Here's the program. Spy dolphins, the secret CIA plan to use mammals to sink ships. Now, way back then, it was just dolphins, and they were trying to tie mines to them to go after ships. Well, why not just take it to the next level? Instead of using just little bitty dolphins, why not use the bigger versions? They can coordinate, and believe me, an 8,000-pound orca hitting the side of a 65-foot Coast Guard ship, patrol ship, they're going to have a problem, especially if they start doing it over and over again. And they take out the rudders, they take out the screw, anything, even bending the screws would be enough to disable a Coast Guard vessel, and that's all they would need. It was Project, I don't even know how to pronounce it, it's OXYGAS was the name of the project. Undercover dolphins have been trained to detect incoming submarines, divers, and even plant bombs. But are they now fighting wars? Satellite imagery indicates Moscow deployed marine mammals to help protect a Black Sea naval base at the start of the 2022 Ukraine war. Naval analyst H.I. Sutton studied satellite photos which revealed an underwater pen moved near the base, possibly to stop Ukrainian Special Operations Forces from infiltrating the harbor underwater to sabotage ships. Russia is not the only country apparently relying on marine mammals. In 2003, the U.S. deployed dolphins to probe the seafloor for mines near a key Iraqi port. U.S. dolphin operations date back to at least the Cold War and a secret 1960s CIA project known as Project OXYGAS, whatever you want to call it, which envisioned dolphin saboteurs trained to attach explosive devices to enemy ships. CIA Project Oxygas, we'll call it Oxygas, used at least 2 captured wild bottlenose dolphins, according to an agency report. Now, I'll give you the link and you can read the rest of this, but these particular orcas are only going after, they're not going after little 20-footers. They're not going after little 15 and 20 and 25-foot boats in the shallows, and these animals can literally deliver themselves right up onto beaches going after seals. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it on Discovery, and literally beach themselves and then wiggle themselves back out into the water. So operating in 10, 20, 30 feet of water would be no big deal for these animals. So you'd have to ask, if they're hunting, why wouldn't they just go after easy prey? Some little 20, 25 footer, in 30 feet of water. One of these things rams into that, knocks everybody out of it. It'd be snacko heaven, but that's not what they're doing. They're going after these craft that are about anywhere between 45 and 75 feet long, and they're just disabling them. That's the strangest thing about it. The behavior defies easy explanation. A team of marine life researchers who study killer whales off Spain and Portugal has identified 15 individual orcas involved in the encounters, 13 of them young, supporting the hypothesis that they are playing. It also supports the hypothesis that a government got a hold of them when they were young to train them early so that they could train them better. There are 2 adults that are engaging in this behavior as well. Maybe they captured 2 and the other 2 have taught the rest of them. In fact, they're even planning for these attacks. Schultz said that there was a call for all hands on deck and the sails were dropped to slow the boat from a racing speed of 12 knots. The crew made noises to scare the orcas off, but not before it had fallen from 2nd to 4th. They seemed more aggressive / playful when we were sailing at speed. Once we slowed down, they also started to be less aggressive in their attacks. So this shows me training. You see, if they were trying to chase an animal like a whale or something, if the whale slowed down, they would become more aggressive if they were actually hunting. This shows training. It was a 75-foot sloop that they hit dead in the water, and then they swam off. That's it. They took the ship out. They took out a 75-foot ship and then just swam off. They didn't try to harm anyone. So it shows that that's what they're being trained to do. And that would make perfect sense for either trying to distract the Coast Guard or trying to take out Coast Guard ships at a very specific point to effect another attack. And where they're doing it right now, is right here, right off the coast of Spain. There was one attack here up off Scotland. That might be just an outlier. But if they can distract the version of the Coast Guard they have over here to sneak something through the Straits of Gibraltar or sneak it out through the Straits of Gibraltar, and then over on the East Coast, they could do the same thing. All they would need is one tiny little opening. And that would be that. They could take out huge Virginia Beach, Norfolk. It makes perfect sense if you think about it. And it's an old tactic. They're just running the gauntlet. If there were a huge series of attacks on vessels by Orcas, nobody would really think about it. Nobody would go to high alert or anything. Nobody would call the military. They would say, well, gosh, this is strange. This is happening now off the coast of New York or Washington, D.C. or someplace else. And they'd be like, boy, that is sure curious. And they call, scientists up. And then that's all they would need is just that one little door to be open. Something would sneak through. Something would get missed. And kaboom. And that would be that. So just saying, it's theory. It's a theory, but I can't imagine why. These animals are incredibly, incredibly intelligent. They don't do things without a reason. And in this particular case, the reason seems abundantly clear. They want to disable ships. How does that serve them? What does it do? They're not going after Navy vessels. They're not going after submarines with the sonar or being disturbed that way. They're going after sailing vessels and fishing vessels that literally some of them have wooden rudders or fiberglass rudders. Of all the ships out there that could harm them, these would be the least likely to. In fact, of all the ships out there that could be harmed by them, they're the most likely. And it's the exact kind of ship you would want to take out. The exact kind of ship you would want to take out. If you were going to try to maneuver your way into the coast of a country like the United States. And they'd only need a 2-mile, 5-mile, 10-mile wide opening. Distract the Coast Guard in a 10-mile radius, just around one target, and keep them busy. And then if a ship like this does respond, Orca can keep a ship like this busy for a real long time. They definitely wouldn't be interdicting anything, that's for sure. Even if they had to take the time to try to take out the Orca, with the way things are these days, most people in the Coast Guard or in the military would do everything they could to not harm the wildlife. Not knowing, of course, that the wildlife had been trained by a foreign government to do this. And it'd be one hell of a thing to prove, wouldn't it? Because I know a lot of people out there scratching their heads and rolling their eyes thinking, oh man, that is a totally crazy theory. But they tried this. They've already admitted they've done this back in the 60s. They were training dolphins to do this, and these are just big dolphins. Big, toothy, organized, incredibly intelligent dolphins. That's all they are. Why wouldn't you take it to the next level if you could? And we've already got satellite photos that show this. Let me see if I can bring that back up. Hold on. This is Spyscape. Dolphin spies and saboteurs. The CIA envisioned the dolphins working alongside U.S. experts rather than in place of them. An agency graphic shows the oxygas dolphins swimming away from a submarine or underwater container using harnesses on their snouts to tow bombs. Oh, here you go. Here's the picture right here. So it's already, theoretical. This was the 60s. So why not just scale it up? Scale it up and use a distraction tactic. Plausible deniability. So anyway, I'll leave that there. God bless. Have a great weekend. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.